What does it take to make a machine endure fear itself? Not merely to survive impact or fire, but to continue forward when the battlefield conspires against its existence. Long before tanks were called indestructible, they were hunted, studied, measured. Every advance in steel invited a response in explosives. Every promise of protection carried the quiet certainty that someone, somewhere, was already designing its undoing. And yet, for a brief and consequential moment in history, technology shifted the balance, not toward invulnerability, but toward survival. In the first half of the 20th century, tanks were symbols of ambition rather than certainty. They were instruments of breakthrough, meant to cross trenches and shatter stalemates, but they were never truly safe. Armor was thick but predictable. Protection was passive, trusting mass and angle to defeat force. As anti-tank weapons matured, this trust began to erode. Shaped charges ignored thickness. Kinetic penetrators laughed at steel. Infantrymen, once helpless, now carried weapons capable of killing armored giants from a single concealed position. The battlefield grew intimate again, close, dangerous. Military planners faced an uncomfortable truth. If tanks were to remain relevant, they could no longer rely on being harder. They had to become smarter. The answer did not arrive as a single invention, but as a question whispered in research facilities and design bureaus. What if armor could react? In the Cold War's long shadow, engineers in the Soviet Union began experimenting with a radical concept. Instead of passively absorbing energy, armor could disrupt it. Explosively reactive armor, ERA, was born not from elegance, but from necessity. Thin plates, layered with explosives, designed to detonate outward when struck, breaking the focused jet of a shaped charge before it could penetrate. The idea was controversial. Armor that exploded sounded like heresy. Commanders worried about infantry nearby. Designers worried about reliability. Critics worried about cost. But war has little patience for purity. The first real tests came not in laboratories, but in dust and fire. When reactive armor appeared on operational tanks, its impact was immediate and unsettling. Weapons that had once guaranteed destruction now failed with alarming regularity. Crews survived hits that would have killed them months earlier. Vehicles returned from battle scarred but alive.
Yet success carried consequences. Infantry tactics shifted. Engagement ranges changed. The battlefield became louder, more violent, more unpredictable. Explosions erupted not just from impact, but from defense itself. Protection had become active, and the psychological balance tilted. No advantage remains uncontested. As reactive armor spread, so did countermeasures. Tandem warheads emerged, designed to trigger the armor with one charge and penetrate with another. Kinetic penetrators grew longer, faster, more unforgiving. Missiles learned to strike from above, where armor was thinner and assumptions weaker. In response, armor evolved again. Composite arrays, layered ceramics, advanced steels, and eventually non-explosive reactive armor and active protection systems that could detect and destroy incoming threats before impact. The tank was no longer a shell, it was a system. A conversation between sensors, materials, algorithms, and human judgment. The turning point was not a single battle, but a realization. Tanks were no longer defined by what they could withstand, but by how they responded. Survivability became dynamic, protection became adaptive. The old arithmetic of armor thickness versus penetration gave way to probability, timing, and decision-making. From this moment forward, armored warfare could not return to simplicity. The tank had crossed a threshold from armored vehicle to integrated battlefield organism. Indestructibility was never achieved, but inevitability was delayed. Today's tanks carry the legacy of that transformation. Reactive armor tiles, composite house, active defense systems, all layered atop doctrines shaped by decades of adaptation. Yet the shadow remains. Each advance in protection drives a corresponding advance in destruction. Technology saves lives, but never permanently. It buys time, it shifts odds, it postpones loss.
The tank survives not because it is invincible, but because it evolves faster than the threats meant to end it.
There is a danger hidden inside every technological triumph. It is not mechanical, it is psychological. Alayhi salam tanks became harder to kill. Commanders began to trust them, not alayhi salam tools, but alayhi salam answers. Armor bred confidence. Confidence hardened into doctrine, and doctrine, once unquestioned, has a habit of surviving long after its assumptions expire. History offers a quiet warning here. No technology remains dominant forever. The belief in near indestructibility encouraged risk, deeper thrusts, thinner infantry screens, greater dependence on machines to absorb chaos meant for humans. In some conflicts, tanks advanced faster than the systems designed to support them. Logistics lagged, situational awareness fractured, protection became isolation. Meanwhile, adversaries adapted patiently. They learned that tanks need not be destroyed to be defeated. Mobility could be denied, crews could be blinded, supply lines could be severed. A tank immobilized is not indestructible, it is merely waiting. Thus, the final lesson emerged slowly and without ceremony. Survivability is not armor alone. It is doctrine, coordination, restraint, and memory. The tank that believes itself invulnerable is already obsolete. The technology changed the balance of war, but it never abolished consequence. And history, alayhi salam always, was watching in silence. The final evolution did not begin with thicker armor or louder explosions. It began with awareness. Alayhi salam's limits of material protection became clear. Designers turned inward, toward perception, data, and time. The question was no longer how much punishment a tank could endure, but how early it could sense danger and how precisely it could respond. Survival shifted from endurance to anticipation. Sensors appeared first, alayhi salam aids, laser warning receivers, thermal sights, battlefield radars. Soon they became arbiters of life and death. Active protection systems learned to listen to the air itself, detecting incoming threats in milliseconds, calculating trajectories faster than human thought, intercepting destruction before it could take form. For the crew inside, war changed texture. Combat became quieter, yet more intense. Decisions arrived compressed into seconds, trust migrating from steel to software, from mass to mathematics. The tank, once deaf and blind beyond its periscope, now watched the battlefield in layers of invisible light.
But awareness carried its own burden. Machines could warn, but humans still chose. Technology could intercept, but never judge intent. The tank survived, not because it thought for itself, but because it extended the reach of the people inside it. In this moment, armored warfare crossed another threshold. The tank was no longer merely protected, it was informed. And in modern war, knowledge is often the most durable armor of all. Steel corrodes, circuits fail, explosives expire, but ideas endure. The technology that made tanks nearly indestructible did not defeat fear. It learned to live with it, and in doing so, it reshaped the battlefield into a place where survival is not a promise, but a calculation made in fractions of a second. History does not reward perfection, it rewards adaptation.